All right, we've got the green light, so welcome, and a warm welcome to those attending, also to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is a meeting of the Audit Committee. My name is John Chesshire, and I'm the chairman of this meeting. No joking over there. Details of the business to be considered today is shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the broadcast. In terms of housekeeping, we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For those in the room, please switch any mobile devices to silent before the meeting starts formally. For those watching via YouTube, if you're so minded, you can complete one of our residents' feedback forms. These can be found in the information section underneath the YouTube video. These forms are intended to help us improve the way that we run our meetings. We're going to move on to the attendees now, and we sort of do a creeping death around the room, really, just to verbally introduce ourselves for those watching online. My name's John Chesshire, as I said, and I am the chair of the meeting today.
Councillor Rita Chandel, Vice Chair.
Councillor Henry Higgins.
Councillor Nick Dennis.
Councillor Tony Bowles.
Councillor June Nelson.
Stephen Reid from EY. I'm your new external auditor.
Debbie Hampson, also from EY. I'm the external auditor for the pension fund.
Claire Baker, Head of Internal Audit and Risk Assurance.
Andy Evans, Corporate Director of Finance.
James Lake, Director of Pensions, Treasury and Statutory Accounts.
Ryan Dowell, Democratic Services Officer.
Lovely, thank you all very much, and a particular welcome to our new colleagues from EY. Welcome to the Audit Committee. We're going to move on to the agenda now, and agenda item 1 is apologies for absence.
Yeah, we have no apologies today.
Fantastic.
Chair.
Thank you.
Can I just offer apologies on behalf of Alex Brown? He's been taken poorly today, so approval has gone to him.
Of course, I should have remembered. So Alex Brown, unwell today. That's such a shame. Good afternoon. Come on in, sir. We've just started. For those viewing at home or watching remotely, just to say that we had one more colleague join us today. For the purposes of those listening online, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. I'm Tony Zeman, Chief Executive of the Council.
Thank you very much, Tony. Welcome to the Audit Committee. We have agenda item 2, which is an opportunity for anyone present today, particularly from the committee member side, to declare any interests that aren't already recognised and noted. No declarations of interest. Items are in part 1 today, so they'll all be considered in public. There are no part 2 agenda items for private discussion today. Moving on then, we have agenda item 5, which is the EY External Audit Update and the 2022-23 Pension Fund Audit Plan. Oh, sorry, and I've leapt ahead. See, it was going quickly and smoothly, and I just put this in to make sure that everyone's paying attention, really. What I meant to say, of course, is agenda item 4, which, as everyone knows, is the minutes of the last meeting, which we held, it seems a long time ago now, on the 8th of August 2023. We have the minutes in the pack. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. I'm going to put my hand up and say I spotted something on page 7 that we just need to make a minor amendment to. Final few words in paragraph 2. It says the committee conformed with the standards. Sorry, one second, Councillor Higgins.
These were sent in, but it's not recorded.
Oh, okay. We'll make a note of that. Sorry, I know I whistled through it, so that would have been on the first page of the minutes. Page 7 it says that the committee conformed with the standards. From memory, it was the internal audit team that conformed with the standards there. Okay. And sorry, Councillor Nelson. Page 8, page 9, 10, page 11, near the bottom, third paragraph up, it said the on-site immigration officer had identified £233,000 worth of savings. I'm not sure that it was the officer who identified the savings, but the presence of the officer led to that kind of volume of savings. Page 12 and page 30. So just a couple of minor amendments, otherwise we'll take the minutes from the last meeting as read. Thank you very much, and thank you for the production of them. Which brings me, once again, to Agenda Item 5, the External Audit Update, the 2022-2023 Pension Fund Audit Plan. James, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good news. The audit of the 21-22 Statement of Accounts has been completed by EY. Under delegated authority, Councillor Chamdale and Andy Evans held a robust meeting with EY and myself to go through the audit results report and agreed a final sign-off. This is now brought to committee for formal ratification. Finishing the 21-22 accounts also meant we were able to complete the production of the draft 22-23 accounts, which are now published on the council website. In terms of the audit, I will let EY provide some background and an update in terms of that, but basically, due to the state of the local authority audits across the country, there's a delay in terms of those being issued, the audit taking place, and there's a government consultation on how to progress forward with that. So I'll pass over to EY a bit later on after I've finished introducing the report as to sort of more details in terms of how they're progressing with the 22-23 audit. Other 21-22 audit activities have been completed, so the housing benefit assurance process was completed, the teachers' pension assessment and the capital receipts pooling, and there's nothing adverse to report to Audit Committee on those. EY will present their 22-23 pension fund audit plan, albeit a lot of the audit work on the pension fund has already been completed and we're close to sort of having the results on that. Furthermore, other audit work has begun for 22-23, so the teachers' pension again is very close to completion in that, and the housing benefit assurance process will start in a couple of weeks, although the preparatory work's already been going on in that. Capital receipts pooling will commence later in the year, early next year, but in line with the sort of statutory deadlines. The other thing I wanted to highlight in the report were the fees. So for 21-22, there's an additional £160,000 of variation fees on top of the standard £142,000 audit fee. Now, the public sector audit appointment, so the body that sort of governs the procurement of audit firms and negotiates fees, will look at that and decide, what they will approve. So ultimately, we'll get the figure that the PSAA approve and tell us how much we have to pay. And the last thing I wanted to mention in terms of fees was that the PSAA, not EY, have consulted on fees for 23-24, and there's a big increase, and I think a lot of this is down to the fact that because of the Redmond review, there's a lot more pressure on audit firms, there's a lot more requirements on audit firms to do more work, and there's a big pressure to do quality audits. So the level of fees have gone up considerably, and they're suggesting a £404,000 fee for 23-24. Again, that's in consultation, so we're yet to see if that actually sort of comes to fruition. But with that, I'll pass back to the chair to sort of for any questions, or if EY want to present their items.
Let's probably go to EY to begin with, and then we'll come back for general questions. Some of the questions may get answered during the presentation, so we'll go to EY and then we'll pitch questions wherever. Thank you very much.
Super, thank you, Chair. I thought what might be useful then is if I start with the Council's 22-23 audit and discuss the position there. And I thought what might be helpful is to talk about the kind of context of the local audit market in England.
and then bring committee members up to date with some of the discussions and direction of travel, and then thirdly think about what does that mean for the council and for the 22-23 audit, and then I'll pass over to Debbie, who can take committee through the pension fund audit plan. So then, in terms of the Council's 22-23 audit, as members may be aware, there's been various press articles in respect of it and reporting on it. But for some time now, there's been a recognised challenge in the public audit market in England, and that has continued to result in a large number of delayed opinions. So the PSAE, the Public Sector Audit Appointments Agency, their latest statistics, so there was a deadline for 22-23 financial statements at the end of September, and at that point in time they identified that there was 918 sets of accounts across local government in England that remained outstanding. And that was for 22-23 and previous years, and that was an increasing problem. So the previous deadline, the previous data point was the previous September, and so the problem has continued to escalate. And it's a really complex set of circumstances which led to that around system leadership, resources and capacity in finance teams, resources and capacity in audit firms, and then some real technical issues and the framework of financial impacting the framework of financial reporting in local government. So to address those delays, the former minister with responsibility for local government in July appeared at the Parliament's Levelling Up Committee and also issued a cross-statement letter which set out a number of principles with which he wanted to progress to allow for a reset of the public audit market in England. And that set out a number of areas, and over the summer it was indicated there would be ongoing consultations between the Department, the Financial Reporting Council and other key stakeholders such as the National Audit Office and other other audit firms, and including SIPFA, who obviously produce the accounting for and responsible for the accounting framework for local government. Those discussions have continued over the summer and indeed are continuing. And certainly my view was hopeful that by this time we would have received some guidance in what the Minister's statement would mean, and therefore how we approach the 22-23 audits of all councils, and indeed many local authorities have outstanding financial statements and audits for previous years as well. So comparatively speaking, Hillingdon is in a good position in that it's the 22-23 financial statements that remain outstanding. That guidance hasn't yet been provided, and I'm just in the process of writing to all of our local government appointments across England to set out how we're taking forward the Minister's intentions in the absence of any firm guidance from either the FRC, Financial Reporting Council, or the Department. And that is, in terms of the priorities that we're working through, is the Minister indicated that he would like all pension fund audits completed. So all pension fund audits are being prioritised, and hence why Debbie's here talking about the plan for the 22-23 pension fund. There was also a view that, and as members will be aware, as an external auditor, you do focus on two areas of work. One is the financial statements and a truth and fairness opinion on the financial statements, and the other one is the consideration of value for money arrangements in an authority. The indication, again, through this ministerial statement was that value for money ought to continue to be completed, and I guess more important than ever, given some of the challenges which a number of local authorities are facing, and we're all familiar with the press coverage there. So the second area we are prioritising is value for money reporting. So the intention would be that in the new year we would commence and complete the Council's consideration of the Council's value for money arrangements. And then the third area is we are continuing, a bit like we did for the 21-22 audit of the Council, continuing to focus on those audits which are just about finished, and because of previous national technical issues they couldn't be resolved, but now they could be resolved and finalised, and we're continuing to complete those. We are awaiting the guidance before then we make any decisions on 22-23 audits and whether it would be a sensible position to progress with them, bearing in mind that one of the policy or one of the announcements within the ministerial statement was that where audits are not completed by the 31st of March 24, so that's for all financial years from 22-23 and preceding, then they would automatically move to some type of disclaimed opinion rather than the audits continue without a finite date. So until we receive that guidance, then in discussion with management, it doesn't seem appropriate to commence the 22-23 audit, because quite frankly at the current time, if that backstop date remains, then it's unlikely that we would get through the whole audit, and of course you would have to pay for the work that we do, not for the work that we don't do. So therefore that's our intended prioritisation at the current time. Now clearly if tomorrow some guidance comes out, we will revisit that and liaise with management, but that is the current most up-to-date position. So Chair, very happy to take any questions on that at an appropriate point.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for the update. It's very interesting and insightful. I think we will move on, and we'll take the plans for the pension fund, and then as a committee we can ask questions of the various participants in the briefings. Debbie, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the audit plan hopefully looks fairly familiar in terms of very similar to previous years. So what I will do is just take you through the key risks that we have in the plan and highlight just a couple of the areas that have changed. So if you look at page 22 if you're using hard copy pack, 28 if you're using electronic page numbering, that just sets out an overview of our strategy for 22-23 and highlights the key risks that we've identified. You'll see that all of the risks on the first page are really not changed from prior years. So we have a general risk of errors due to fraud or error, or misstatements due to fraud and error, apologies. We also have a risk around misstatements of investment income and investment values due to misposting of journals by management, and that's very much linked back to that fraud risk and risk of management override. We then have a specific risk around the valuation of the more complex level 3 investments, which are harder to value, and again you'd see that in any plan that has material level 3 investments, so there's nothing unusual there or different than you'd see any other plan. The next area is IAS 26 disclosures, which are the actuarial present value of the promised retirement benefits. That is a highly material figure. It's based on estimates, and so we identify that as a higher area of inherent risk. There's a small change in our approach to auditing that area this year due to two reasons. The first reason is that the triennial membership numbers feed through into that disclosure this year. Therefore, we're doing some testing on that membership data to ensure that we can be satisfied over the data that's feeding into that key change this year. The second is that for the reasons that Stephen's outlined, we're not currently doing the Council's audit. We would normally leverage some assurance from that work on the Council's net liability. We don't have that work to leverage this year, so we're doing that work as part of the pension fund audit. So that involves looking at the IAS 19 report that the Council gets for its pension figures and asking our own actuaries to do a roll forward calculation to compare our own estimates against that, and if that's within a certain range, then that gives us assurance over the IAS 26 process as well. So that's just a slight difference in our approach. Going concern very much as in previous years, that we'll continue to focus on that because of the greater level of volatility and uncertainty as well as auditing standards. The new risk that you'll see is the classification of investments. Last year there was a reclassification between level 2 and level 3, so no change in the overall value of the investments, but just the classification, and therefore that impacted on the procedures that we perform. Because that was a very significant figure, we've given that as a particular area of focus this year. I would note that classification between level 2 and level 3 is not always black and white and can be quite judgmental, so I think we have had some early discussions this year, so hopefully that area will not yield to any further changes in the accounts. Materiality is set on the same basis as last year, so no significant change in those figures. So the only other change I really want to draw your attention to was ISA 315, which is set out on page 41 electronic, page 35 hard copy. So that's a new standard that applies to audits for 22-23. So this is the first year that we're applying or considering the impacts of that ISA. What it requires us to do is to identify and assess the risks of material misstatements, which we've always had to do. So it's not a new ISA, it's a revision to the ISA. What it does, however, require us to specifically do is to give more focus on identifying IT controls, and then also to evaluating and the design and implementation of those controls. So even though we continue to adopt a fully substantive approach to the audit of the pension fund, and we don't rely on controls, we do need to do a little bit more work around that area compared to what we've done in previous years. We have included an estimate of the potential fee from that extra work. However, as it is the first time we're doing it for the pension fund, that is an estimate, and we will come back obviously once we've concluded the audit. So really, I wasn't proposing to say anything more. Hopefully the plan is fairly self-explanatory, and like I said, just a couple of small changes from the prior year.
Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for their part in the presentation. Committee members, Councillor Hillingdon, do you want to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, sorry. Value for money has obviously been something that I've been very thinking about from the beginning. So you said, James, it's going to go up to about 400,000 for the audit. Yeah. So, in relation to the private sector, is that the same now, or is it still? So, say a company of the same size as a council, would they be looking to pay 400,000 on an audit for them? Or have I misunderstood that?
No, yeah, no, that's right. But I'm not sure what the private sector would be paying. But I think what I can say is the fact that the last PSA procurement exercise, they really focused on driving down audit costs.
Yeah.
And I think we were paying over 250,000, over 5 years ago. So
yeah.
If that 250,000 had gone up sort of in line with sort of general increases, we probably would be paying £400,000 anyway. So okay. I think it's just the last 5 years have been excessively cheap, and that's what's driven some of perhaps some of the audit inefficiencies and resource issues. I guess.
So now it's just been brought up to the same where it should be rather than what it's been.
Yeah.
I mean, the question then would be obviously to you. Sorry, I forgot your name. Do beg your pardon, Steve. Is it? Sorry, Steve. Is that the amount of money now that will be paid to you, to your company to do something like that? Will that make your work easier, and we'll be getting things? I don't mean any offence, but we'll get them on time, or is it the same sort of situation that we could have delays or something like that? Does that help you deliver to us an audit quicker, or is that fair?
Yeah. I think through you, Chair. Yeah, very happy to take that. So the as I outlined in terms of the delays in the public audit market, it's a complex set of circumstances that have led to that, and it's not purely associated with the fees paid to audit. So let me say that first. The point that James makes in terms of over the previous 5-year contract from PSAA, clearly in terms of this new, and the fee position there versus where the fee position is now, PSAA obviously went through a competitive tendering exercise and received a number of bids, and I guess in many ways what this does show is the degree to which the previous fees that had been set were so low that they were impacting the market, because this has been a market reset. In terms of your question around how do they compare, then the council has to prepare its financial statements in accordance with international financial reporting standards, and the audit has to be completed in accordance with both the National Audit Office Code of Audit Practice and also international auditing standards. So if I was sitting if this was a company boardroom at the moment, then that company might well prepare its financial statements under international financial reporting standards, and the audit standards would be exactly the same. So there is no difference between the work that an auditor does on a company or the work that an auditor does on a local authority. The quality of the work that's required is similar. In some ways, you might say that local authority can be much more complex because of some of the nuances in the financial reporting in a local authority. But I'm confident now that through this rebasing, then that will be helpful in ensuring that auditors are fairly remunerated, and it's about being fairly remunerated for the complexity of the work that's required. One thing we have no control over, of course, is the regulators, the Financial Reporting Council, and any new expectations that they might impose or place on auditors, and or any other change in auditing standards. And Debbie highlighted the change that's coming in for 22-23 for the first time in terms of ISA 315. Undoubtedly, over the course of the next 5-year term of appointment, then there will be other changes that will require to be reflected in the fee position. But I think the fee as outlined provides that fair base for 23-24.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased because obviously we hear the figure and we go, having a heart attack. But I was suspected that it was a levelling of the situation. So, that which will be better for us as well, because you're trying to allocate resources to councils which are underpaying is more difficult than if you're actually getting a fair deal. So I think it's positive. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Andy, I just wonder whether it would be worth reminding or updating the committee a little bit about why we went with the PSAA approach and why we decided to be part of that way forward.
Yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but I think Stephen's relayed the fact that there is a competitive process in terms of bidding to do the local government work. And I guess coming back to Councillor Higgins' questions, I can give him some assurance that my professional network has challenged the PSA very robustly, to the extent I'd say one or two of my colleagues probably were a little bit unfair on them, but there's perhaps no harm in that to a degree. To the extent you see we're in the situation we are now with these fee increases, which are very much a result of under-resourcing, I think, over the past few years. And I guess the best sort of demonstration of that is when the PSA presented to us as London Treasurers. They were clear to demonstrate that there weren't companies queuing up to do this work. What we saw in the last process was actually companies exiting the market because they couldn't make it stack up. Okay, we've got a couple of new entrants from memory, but on the smaller side, but there's not a lot of people waiting to, should I say, come off the bench to do this work. So we're in a position where we've reached the point, obviously a crisis point in terms of the market and the backlog of work where there needed to be a reset. And I think this fees is all part of that reset with the legislation and changes emerging hopefully very shortly to get that implemented.
Thank you very much for that. And I suppose one additional benefit is that we've retained our same external auditors, even if personnel move like they do, and that familiarity can only be a good thing in terms of the process that has to be followed. Colleagues, any other questions, again, either for EY or for James or Andy on this? Councillor Dennis.
What's the disclaimed opinion and why is that important, or is it different, or is that opinion, what's it really worth compared to the other opinion?
So a disclaimed opinion, again through you, Chair, is one type of modified opinion. So most traditionally you would see an external auditor expressing an opinion which confirms that the financial statements are true and fair. And then there are, I suppose, two other, there's a number of modified types of opinions, but two of the other ones might be a limitation of scope. So that might relate to the fact that the auditor can express a true and fair opinion except on a couple of specific areas where they can't receive the evidence. And then a disclaimed opinion is in essence, the auditor can't express an opinion because they don't have the evidence to support any opinion. Now, in the corporate world, you might view a disclaimed opinion as some failure of process. Officers, management, they've been unable to produce a set of financial statements which could stand up to the audit process. Clearly, this is an entirely different situation that we're talking about here, and if that was the direction of travel, then the guidance, and I don't know what's going to be in any guidance, would be clearly referring to the fact that should a backstop date not be achieved, then that's the route that needs to be followed through by the auditor and by management. But if there was a disclaimed opinion on the financial statements, remember there would still be the reporting on the value for money aspects to provide members and other stakeholders assurance over those arrangements.
Thank you very much. I have one question. Obviously, we've got a plan for the pension fund audit, and thank you very much for that. It's on page 42 of the pack. We're about 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in. Are things going as they should be?
They are. We are making good progress, I think, as James said at the start. So although we're only just bringing the plan to you now, that's largely as a result of timing issues. So we are aiming to conclude by the end of December. I'm not aware of any significant issues to date, but all the work hasn't been through review process yet, so it will be incorrect for me to say that will be the outcome. We are, however, planning, as I said, to conclude before Christmas, then draft an audit results report with the aim of bringing that back to this committee in February. At that point, we still may not know the position in relation to the council, but we can at least report you the findings from the pension fund audit. So no issues that I'm aware of today, and good progress has been made.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that assurance. James, similar view from your side of the house?
Yeah, no, I can just echo that. I've had no problems, no feedback from the team. Everything seems to be going smoothly. No issues have come out of the woodwork or anything. So everything is progressing nicely and quickly and on time. So it's all positive in that regard at the moment.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. If there are no further questions, then thank you very much indeed for the plan and the presentation. Committee are happy to ratify the accounts and note the other items mentioned in the introduction to this agenda item. Thank you very much indeed. And just for those viewing at home, EY will now be leaving the building, so to speak. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, and we'll look forward to working with you on the future work. Let's move on in the agenda then. So we'll take agenda item 6, the Internal Audit Progress Report for 23-24 Q2. Over to you, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you. So our Internal Audit Progress Report, since the last Audit Committee meeting, we've issued 10 assurance reviews to the final report stage. You can see these on page 6 of the report, which is page 63 of the pack. That's our summary table. Of those 10, 3 were substantial assurance, 4 were reasonable assurance, and 3 were limited assurance. These 3 related to the Trading Standards Proceeds of Crime Act report. No significant issues coming out of that. It was to do with the kind of oversight, and they were appointing a new head of service at the time of the audit, and they were taking a lot of those things forward already, which is really positive. Risk management. This again was a known area of improvement, and we deliberately asked Mazars, our external provider, to come in and to do this independent review because we wanted to make sure that their independent opinion aligned with what our transformation programme was going to be doing, looking at risk management. And then finally, the workforce planning, establishment control and recruitment audit. Again, there was a lot of action going on at the time of the audit. A lot of the findings related to the strategic direction of workforce, so having a sort of overarching workforce strategy, workforce plan. This again was a known area and was being addressed and should be addressed by the end of this year. As I always say, this is a very flexible internal audit plan. We make sure that we keep things updated as new risks emerge, or if there's other sources of assurance, and actually we've seen a number of changes which are noted within the report. And actually, just to add to that, we have, since this report was written, we have started an additional review looking at pool cars and a number of consultancy reviews into some other areas. In Appendix C, we have our follow-up of management actions. This has been extended in terms of what we're presenting from what we presented to the last Audit Committee meeting. Hopefully, it includes a lot more useful information. Overall, we've had 43 actions have been verified, and in total 10 reports have now been closed as all the actions have now been completed. Where actions are marked as being overdue, we're setting new dates. In a lot of these cases, it's because the actions are being incorporated into larger projects, or there's been a change in responsible officer. And we also have meetings arranged in the diaries in relation to some of those unknowns. Again, this is normally because the responsible officer from the time of the review has changed, and we just want to make sure that the new responsible officer really knows what it is that we're looking for. So I don't have any concerns in relation to the follow-up currently. That was all I was going to say on the progress report, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much indeed for the presentation and for the report. Colleagues, any questions for Claire on the internal audit progress report? Okay. Silence from the committee. I've got a couple of questions. Well, having said that, I have a couple of questions, if I may. You mentioned about the Trading Standards Proceeds of Crime Act, and said that there are some findings, but they weren't particularly a big deal. What was the consequence, I wondered, of the findings around where are we? Of the records not being completed and stored appropriately? Is there a risk there?
So it isn't that they're not stored appropriately, it was consistency. So there's two financial investigators and they have separate portfolios, they're stored separately. They use the sort of template slightly different. So it was more around if there was management oversight, making sure there was some consistency between the two, or they couldn't cover for each other because they wouldn't have access to each other's papers or anything. I'm a worst case scenario kind of person. What happens if somebody went off sick? How would you kind of cover?
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's clear for me. I have a question about the changes to the plan, and it may be a question for Democratic Services rather than for you, Claire. Obviously, as an audit committee, part of our remit is to approve the planned programme of work. And this time we've set out a plan for a year at the start of the year, acknowledging that it would be a flexible plan as the year evolves. My question, and it doesn't require an answer now, but an answer at some point, is where there is a change to the plan, to the tune of several audits, do we have to sort of agree or approve that plan, or simply note the changes to the plan as an audit committee? And I genuinely don't know the answer, so...
No, I think, based on my experience, it's normally noting. I guess if there was a particularly significant change, for example, cutting out the entire Q4 plan or something, then maybe we'd need that approval. But in most cases, it's because the timing isn't right, so we've just moved stuff into Q1 of next year if, projects are taking longer or if there's different internal reviews going on. Obviously, if I had any major concerns because people were pushing back and being like, don't look at this area, then I would probably bring that for approval for you to sign off and say, no, it's okay, you don't need to look at it.
Okay. Now, that sounds sound and appropriate to me. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, so it's not really... obviously, I'm new to the committee, so forgive me, so you probably all know why. What are the numbers? I mean, you've got a key down the bottom for high risk, medium stuff. Is it possible in the next report to have a key what the numbers mean?
So the numbers on the right hand side.
Well, let's just take strong pages. Sorry, food health. I'll put my glasses on. Wouldn't I? Pages 68. And you have, say, strong families. It's got action it's got red and medium. So that's obviously the risk levels, and then you've got number. You've got 1, and then completed 1.
So that's a number of actions. So in terms of our follow-up, so we've got one for that stronger families have those 1 high finding and 1 medium finding within the report, and of those, both of them are now marked as being completed. Right.
So so if we could have a sort of I think for clarity, it'd be nice to have a key for that as well, so we actually know where we are. Yeah. I don't know how. you're the chairman.
Okay,
I don't know
I thought it was fairly self-explanatory, but you know what we have in that it's as Claire said, it's the management actions that have come from previous internal audit reports, and those are graded in terms of their severity. And the numbers there are the ones that were outstanding at the time of your review of these. Am I right? Or I think when you've done the update, these were the ones that were outstanding.
Yeah, so I'll separate out that first column. So that's the total number outstanding that needed to be followed up. And then I guess the current status is the following on 5 columns. In terms of which ones are verified, completed, overdue and unknown. So I'll separate that first column.
Again,
anything to make it clearer then.
Yeah, and through you, Chairman, the number of issues, I mean, obviously we've got risk management's got 5. So the higher it goes, is it more alarm bells for us to worry about, or is it, do we have a reference to where those 5 were? Are they back in the report somewhere else?
So the actions would be from the reports in the years when they were done. It isn't a clear cut. The more high findings, the more worried you could be. Simplistic, yes, it could be, but it might be more that we've split things up depending on the root cause of things. It's purely the number of actions that came out of the report.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
I mean, as we moved on to that. I did have a question. It's on page 67. It was around the cemeteries, because that one looked a little bit alarming to me. Because we've got a couple of high graded actions, 4 medium graded ones, and we don't know the status for whatever reason. There's not been an update, I'm guessing. So that was one that, as it were, rang an alarm bell for me.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. So that was a change of responsible officer, and we have a meeting booked. I think we've probably had the meeting since then. So that one will be moving.
Lovely, thank you very much. And the other one of a similar nature was on the next page, and that was around IR35. Similar sort of situation. Okay, lovely. Now, Councillor Turner, Nelson, forgive me.
Through as well with the planning and enforcement, because between the high and the medium is 7 and the high is 2. Can you give an explanation on that?
In terms of the follow-up, so we would have raised 2 high findings and 7 medium recommendations. All of them have now been closed, so they've all now been addressed. In terms of the severity, we do have in the appendix a sort of definition for what we mean by high finding, a medium finding, and low finding. I can't off the top of my head tell you what the findings were in detail, but yeah, they have all now been closed.
So yeah, the fixes have been made in those areas. Councillor Birds.
Just a couple of things, really. Just on that again, on the birth registration service, you've got a new date of November 24. That's a whole year before change. Is that exceptionally long in audit terms?
So we do push back on dates to make sure they're realistic. A lot of times where things are a lot further in the future, it's because there'll be a bigger transformation program going on or a bigger change. So if it was being incorporated into a new system or something like that, that's why it would be a longer date. We do push back on dates.
Thank you, appreciate that, Brian. And just a general question about your staffing levels. Have you got adequate staffing to do all your reports at the moment?
Yes, definitely. We're fully staffed now, definitely getting through a lot of the audits at the moment. It's great.
Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. Claire, just through procurement compliance management, got a new date of June. Can you elaborate on that one? Because we were talking at another meeting yesterday about procurement and contracts. Give you a bit more information on what's missing on this one?
So this links into the Oracle project. So the actions are around processes, which are obviously all changing as we move to the new Oracle system, which is due to come in April. So that's why the date was changed to June. So we'll wait for that new system and then we'll follow it up in terms of that process.
A final observation from me, if I may, and I'm going to jump back a couple of pages. Apologies for that. Page 63, where you have your list of the internal audit reviews. What I thought it might be quite useful for the committee to see, particularly jumping ahead onto the risk section that comes up next, is which directorates those audits map to in the sort of new world, just so that we can again sort of assess coverage over the organisation as a whole. I appreciate some of these will be cross-cutting in nature.
Yeah, so that's in the sort of audit reference number. So P's for the place directorate, A is adults, F is finance, C is central, is children's, S is central services, and then D is for digital. I can't put that into the key to make it clearer.
Now that you've said that, of course it makes perfect sense, but I must confess to having never, ever kind of thought of that previously. So thank you for that. I will now go through and count the P's and the F's and all of that, no doubt, in the future. But thank you, that makes it a little bit clearer. Again, just to assess what work is going across the piece. Final thing I want to say, the KPIs show a nice sort of progress compared to the initial batch or the second batch last time. Keep up the good work to you and to the team. And I'm pleased to hear that the staffing is bedding down nicely, as you said. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next agenda item then, which really is the Claire show today. So Claire, could you talk us through agenda item 7, please, the risk management report for Q2?
So this is the first draft version of the new risk report. So this is part of our transformation work, looking at how we can move towards providing assurance on how effectively all risks are being managed by the officers responsible. So moving away from just presenting a risk register at a point of time, but actually looking at how proactive are people, managing the risks within their area, and if there's any trends coming out. Now, normally we do bring a full detailed corporate risk register. There's two reasons that you don't have that. Firstly, simply practically, we have moved to using an Excel centralised register, having a lot more information on there to make it more of a sort of useful tool and a lot more information. That just makes it harder to get it into a readable format. I did attempt, it was size 4 font. I just thought, unless you come along with sort of microscope to look at it, it's probably not terribly useful. Now, there is ways that when we're moving to getting the new electronic system, there is ways that we can get reports out of that, which will be more useful. The second reason is we're trying to make the corporate risk register very clearly feeding up from the operational grassroots level. So how are services recording risks and escalating them up to the directorate level, and then anything significant getting escalated up to the corporate risk register to make sure that we're getting anything read from across the whole council. This means that the sort of centralised risk register is very much an operational tool. It's continually being updated, and to be a useful tool, it has to be something that potentially people are putting more, scrappy notes in. As things are changing, their actions are a lot more sort of practical, rather than it being worded in a report format. So one of the things that I've said in terms of my forward plan, we're looking at developing a format that will align the corporate risks against the strategic objectives, because really that's what we're looking at in terms of how are we addressing the strategic risks that sit against the strategic objectives for the council. So we're looking at developing a sort of strategic framework that brings together what the corporate risks are, what our performance information is. Now, I would love to have had it ready for this audit committee, but to make it useful and to make it really helpful rather than rushed, it's something that's going to take time as we develop the new system. We are already working on it. We're discussing it at CMT, so we'll hopefully we bring it to the next audit committee meeting. Within this report, like I say, it's focusing on terms of providing assurance on how effectively risks are being managed. So we have included KPIs. There's more KPIs we can produce. Currently it's very manual based on the Excel spreadsheet, but moving into the new system, a lot of it could be more automated. If there's anything that you'd find particularly useful, please do let me know, and we'll look at incorporating it into the report. In summary, there's big changes over Q2, so we've moved again to that central risk register in Excel. We've reallocated risks following internal moves and services changing between directorates and setting up new directorates. And also we've done a lot of work looking at refreshing the content of those registers. This means that we had significant change of the red risks on the corporate risk register. 6 have been removed and 10 added. A lot of those 10, potentially will be changed, will be downgraded, will be looked at. That's a process we're still going through. So you'll see probably another big change by the next audit committee. So it's very much a work in progress. The new system is getting closer. We are looking at procuring it, signed off, so hopefully that will be implemented by the next audit committee. We do have Christmas in the way, which is unfortunately bad timing, but we're looking at how we can pull out reports from that, and hopefully we'll bring in a further update at the next meeting.
Well, it sounds like Santa has answered your request for a new system just in time for Christmas. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Claire. Colleagues, any questions around the risk element of the report? Look. Okay. Councillor Bills.
It just seems, thanks for the report and the update and etc. The meeting housing needs A1 risk static.
Yeah, so I think this is some of the problem between having the strategic kind of corporate risk register and the operational side kind of being blurred previously. So that is a very high level, meeting housing needs. There's a lot of different aspects that feed into that. So, similarly, for example, the fraud one, there's a lot of different types of fraud. So if we're looking at scoring it, we're pretty much guaranteed to have it happen, and it's guaranteed to have a big impact depending on the different ways that you look at it. So that is one of them. So meeting housing needs, there's so many things that feed into it. That's why it's such a big high score. I'm not saying it's not a big risk. It still is. And there's a lot of actions and changes going on with that. But yeah, that's why it's currently scored at a big risk. And again, this is something we're looking at. We're looking at scoring these, reassessing them, rewording things. It is going through a lot of change.
Thank you. It just seems consistent, higher risk all the time. And are we ever going to get out of it downgrading as a risk?
Well, it's one of those big systematic issues of the present time, isn't it? We'll come on to the fraud report and the good work the fraud team are doing to try to add some properties back into the pot, but these are big systemic issues, aren't they? Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I'll just pick up on that. I think it's not alone. We're not alone, are we? This is not just a problem in Hillingdon. This is a problem across the board. So until I think we're going to see a bit more of how that is inflated next time when this report becomes a bit bigger. So I'll just take this as noted, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really like the report, and obviously it's work in progress, and the developments and transformation that you've been undertaking, I think, are welcome from the committee's perspective. I think, let's see what happens in the next report and where we're going with this before perhaps we think too much about what we'd like tweaked or adjusted. But I like the charts. I think they give a very visual, very high impact view. It'll certainly give us food for thought as to which areas we want a little bit more information on as new systems come in and the process beds down. But I like, the ability to see which, for argument's sake, directorates have stepped up and done the things that they're supposed to have done by the due dates that they're supposed to, and maybe which ones are sort of lagging behind and maybe need a little bit of a nudge from time to time. Ditto with the things like the risks without smart actions. If we've got a well-described risk and a bunch of actions that are being implemented to address that risk, we can see that some areas are doing very well there, others need to do a bit of homework as time goes on. So it'd be interesting for us as a committee to see the progress that's made on this, to consider what other information we'd like to know, and to track the progress towards improvement over time. Thank you. I really liked the report, and the work that you're doing to improve this is essential. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our agenda item 8 then, our counter-fraud progress report for Q2. Let's go to Claire for this one.
Thank you. So yes, I'm standing in for Alex, who's unfortunately not well. He sent me some wording to say. I will read out what he said. Anything difficult, technical, apologies, I might have to refer back to him. I am sure he's probably watching, or he'll watch it later. I know what he's like, so yeah.
Just to interrupt for a moment, I didn't even think of that, but I bet you're right.
So, Counter-Fraud Progress Report starts on page 79 of your packs. It's been another bumper quarter with lots of activity across a variety of risks. This has led to further savings of 1.7 million, bringing the year-to-date total to approximately 3.5 million. Housing has continued to be a focus, with 21 properties recovered due to tenancy fraud, bringing the total recovered for the year to 48 properties. Through our proactive B&B residency check project, we've investigated and closed 15 cases, mainly due to non-occupancy, saving over £134,000. The team have been working through the National Fraud Initiative data matches, which are released earlier this year, and in particular focusing on the single person discount. Numerous discounts have now been cancelled to the value of 70,000. The management team have been also working closely with housing and have recently provided training to over 90 staff on interview skills and techniques to help support and upskill staff at the frontline roles. After a lengthy recruitment campaign, Alex is pleased to announce that as of the 4th of December, we will have a fully staffed in all positions, with all positions filled, and an up-to-date structure chart is available in Appendix D, which was requested at the last Audit Committee meeting. And then finally, last but not least, the team was nominated for the Public Finance Awards some months ago, and thank you with help from the Chair of the Audit Committee and also members of CMT. They've actually been shortlisted in the category of Outstanding Fraud Prevention, Detection and Recovery, based on the team's achievements over 22-23. They've been shortlisted alongside 6 other fraud teams, and the awards ceremony is next week. So, yeah, good luck to them.
Good luck to them indeed. A very well-deserved shortlisting, and whatever happens, that's a great achievement and a well-deserved achievement. Councillor Higgins.
Obviously, if Alex is going to watch him, I think we should all wish him well. I think he's probably watching it now as we're speaking, but there you go. No, thank you very much. Brilliant news.
Councillor Chunder.
Yeah, just checking your comments, Chair. Well done for being nominated. Alex, if you're watching, so fingers and toes crossed.
Okay, you're getting lots of shout-outs from the committee today. I'm going to make a joke, and we shouldn't joke about fraud and things like this, but I couldn't help but wondering, seeing as we've started the Alex, are you watching kind of line, which was never my intent, I hasten to add. I wonder whether, Alex, you're not here today because actually it's a decrease in success this quarter compared to previous quarters where the results have only been going up and up, and that perhaps you couldn't bring yourself to attend today for that reason. I completely joke, and I apologise that none of this is a joking matter, of course. Well done to you and to the team. In terms of the content and the report, a little bit more seriously for a moment. Any particular observations or questions, taking into account that Claire may not have all the answers to hand today? Okay. I thought, again, it was a very well-written report, a very clear report. It took us through step by step. Claire, I don't normally hear you use the word bumper, so I'm guessing that was one of Alex's words for the briefing. Keep up the sustained performance to the team. Well done to all of them once again. I don't think there are any questions from the committee. Keep up the good work and get well soon, look. Let's move on. The final agenda item then for this evening is just the Forward Look programme, agenda item 9. I think it's just a note, isn't it, Ryan?
So I can just ask, if members haven't already done so, if they can please return the skills matrix that we've sent out. We can resend if necessary, and then because there is an item for next time.
Yeah, thank you very much. This does help us put together a little programme of support and training, which can be very useful for us. Councillor Dennis.
Just a quick point for Ryan, actually. In terms of if we have any pre-meets, it'd be useful if that was sent to us for our diaries, because even if it's not official, it's like, that's how I'll understand what time to attend, so that'd be useful.
Absolutely. Sorry, I forgot that we'd had that little conversation. Yeah, pre-meet for the committee's attention, just so that we remember at the end of the day. All right. That brings today's audit committee to a close. Thank you very much to all the officers for the informative and very clear reporting. Makes our job a little bit easier. Thank you very much for your hard work and your efforts. Thank you very much for joining in. Thank you for those watching at home today. Good evening.